totally wired. I'm totally wired. I'm totally wired.
Hi, two awesome movie nerd watchers. Elliot here.
And Abby.
And today we're going to be talking about a lovely documentary called Man on Wire. But first, Abby and I are Oompa Loompas today. If you cannot tell, we are incredibly orange. Our complexion has been altered by the lovely faux lighting of Abby's room here. So, I mean, we're not going to sing, moral riddle songs to you or anything. But if you want to, make that request. I mean, one guy commented that we suck. Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Well, first of all, yeah, we know we suck. But you know what? We're cool with that, so how about you? So anyway, Man on Wire. Abby, why don't you tell us a little bit about the film?
Okay, Man on Wire is a documentary about Philippe Petit, who is a high wire walker. He's French, first of all, in case the name didn't tip you off. And he's a tightrope walker. And he, along with some friends, planned this elaborate escapade in which he strung a tightrope wire between the two World Trade Center towers in, I think it was 1974.
I believe so.
And walked between them. And so the documentary kind of chronicles how he got that idea and all the planning that went into it and all of the things that he did up until that point and a little bit about his life afterwards. And I thought it was a pretty amazing piece of work, as at least visually. There are so many photographs and film clips of him walking, especially one of him walking on Notre Dame Cathedral that just kind of took my breath away. It was just amazing.
Absolutely. Now, some of the stuff they had to recreate, like some of the stuff leading up to the actual event, but there are a significant number of clips and photos and things of that nature, and it just blew my mind to actually see it. Because, I mean, to describe it is one thing, but to visually be able to confirm it and have it, just rest in your soul that you can see it and actually experience it, after the fact, of course, but still, was just really quite moving. One of the things that I think was really the strength of this film was the fact that they got all of his cadre of cohorts together. They got everybody and interviewed them, and it was like you're sitting around a table with all these old friends and they're telling stories. They were all so invigorated by telling their tale. It was really quite interesting.
Oh yeah, it made me feel like I had majorly missed out by not being a part of it.
I mean, we wouldn't be born for another couple of decades, but we still missed out. So
they looked like they were having so much fun too. If I can do something like that at some point in my life with anybody, I think I will have lived a complete life. Maybe not walk on a tightrope wire, but something that elaborately planned, something that was that involved, I think would be exciting. It's an absolute adventure, and it goes off just like a bank heist, which makes it all the more watchable.
It does. Now, Abby, I don't know about you, but watching the film, especially for the first 10 to 15 minutes, the chronicle of Philippe's planning of the scheme is basically juxtaposed with the actual construction of the World Trade Center. And for me personally, it was the only time in the film, I mean, I suppose they got it out of the way immediately, where I was having flashbacks to September 11th as they were lifting steel beams and things of that nature. And it was not addressed at all in the course of the film, but I still felt as though the issue was addressed and in a very elegant way.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people who've reviewed that movie have had a similar reaction. That I know some people have been genuinely really touched by it. I've heard some critics say that they were almost brought to tears just by watching the inspiring moments of construction and everybody's excitement about it, and the end part where he walks between the two towers. And I don't know, I kind of got that idea, but I guess I was never quite as affected. I mean, I was by 9/11, but since I hadn't been to New York at that point, I didn't know anybody who lived in New York, it didn't quite hit me as much as just it being a huge national tragedy.
Absolutely. Whereas, for me, family members living in New York at the time and actually having been to the top of the towers, I mean, it was really, really trippy for me to look and see what everything was like back in the 70s before they, really had completely finished the building, because he did his walk and planned it for the time before the entire structure was completely finished. So the top couple dozen floors were not really in use, but it was genuinely impactful to see this place that I had actually been, and then everybody, it's been ingrained into our national consciousness. But at the same time, just the visuals of him walking in the very, very different locales. There's one where he walks on a bridge in Sydney, Australia, then the cathedral at Notre Dame, and then, of course, the World Trade Center itself. I thought I was going to be bored. I heard about the idea of the film, and I'm like, a guy walking on a wire, really?
Yeah.
But I was just so floored by the visuals and how he did it, and the way he presented himself, and the grace, and it was just like a genuine, I mean, I think the word beauty is used a lot, and sometimes too much, but it was really one of the most beautiful things.
Yeah, it really gave me chills. Like every time I watched it, I remember when I saw the trailer, I just got these crazy chills. And then when I saw the actual film, and saw all these clips, the actual full length clips, it gave me the same feeling. And just, God, I wish that I could see something like that. It just seems like, the kind of once-in-a-lifetime thing. And even after the cops arrest him in New York, after he comes down from the towers, there's this interview for the press with this one cop, and you can tell, he's irritated that this guy did this thing and caused a disturbance, but at the same time, he's completely amazed. And he even says, towards the end, he says, it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I don't think I'm ever going to see anything like it in my entire life. And he looks completely entranced. So it's that same kind of effect, I think.
Absolutely. And, it's interesting because it's not just the actions of this guy that are really entrancing. It's his personality himself. He is the gravity of this entire story and really this entire film. And so to hear everybody else's perspectives, to hear all of his cohorts' perspectives and the people who he interacted with, as well as he really charms you. I've never met this man, but I feel charmed by him just by the way he presents himself and by the way he tells his story. And so that, mixed with the, really enrapturing visuals of him walking and, laying down on the wire, lying down on the wire.
Yeah.
Lying down on the wire.
Yeah.
That's something for me and Abby, but that's okay. You should all know that it's lying down on the wire. And all that sort of stuff, you're really rooting for him. And, of course, there are tons of movies in which, you're supposed to root for somebody, and everybody knows from the minute going in what's going to happen, and they know that it's going to be a success, or else the guy wouldn't be talking to you about it 30 years later. But, I mean, at the same time, I sort of felt let down at the end of the film, because this guy, who I had built up in my mind as being this, absolute artist, Renaissance man, interested in all this sort of stuff, he lets down the audience even after he succeeds. And it's the way that he comes down from the wire, he gets a taste of fame, and then he completely changes.
He does.
And all of his friends in the interviews, they break down crying, literally 2 of them, I remember.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they are just so hurt even decades later by the way that he changed and how he pretty much betrayed them. And so it's like, you rise to the peak of this film, and then you crash into disappointment just because of the way that he acts.
I think the thing that disappointed me the most was not just the way that he treated his friends, but the way that he treated his girlfriend at the time, because they make this huge thing at the beginning of how they met and their relationship.
Crazy montage.
It's adorable, and you think, I don't know, you're never told one thing or the other, but I always got the impression that it was a relationship that was going to last. It seemed like something that had been built in such a dynamic situation.
I honestly had thought that the people were just being interviewed separately, but that they were still together. The way that they talked about one another. But, I mean, it's just, it's interesting because in the descriptions of everybody else and the way he is portrayed, just in the actual physical act of walking on the wire, this guy seems very, very innocent, very, very well-intentioned and all that sort of stuff. And, he would never in a million years be able to be caught up in something to the point where he loses his ethics or loses his head. And then
he completely does.
Completely does.
Which is disappointing. But the rest of the movie is absolutely worth seeing, if only for those amazing shots of him walking between the towers and between the deals on the bridge in Sydney and Notre Dame. It's really amazing and kind of mind-blowing, and if you get a chance, do see it. It's very, very good.
Because, look, some of you are going to complain and say that you know how this movie ends. But I put to you this, is it really that important, especially in this case? There are plenty of movies where you walk in and you know exactly how the damn thing is going to end, but in the end, no pun intended, it just doesn't matter because it's the journey, and you really go on that with him and all of his friends, and you feel your heart race as they are almost caught or as he actually walks. And you know what? At the end of the day, this is a movie about the journey, not the destination.
Absolutely.
So you know what? We're the two awesome movie nerds.
Go forth and watch.